spinal cord. So the spinal cord is actually the one that connects the dots, right? You have your, I'm going to use this picture over here. You have your peripheral nerves. So this is the one that detects anything. And then they have to report to this part right here, which is your brain. To get to the brain, you have this spinal cord. It connects, okay? So we're going to look at the spinal cord, but first, let's look at the structures. Let's review again. What structures protect your spinal cord? What structures protect your spinal cord? I'm thinking, you remember? Give me a few structures that protect your spinal cord. Vertebrae. Yes, which is bone, vertebrae. Very good. What else? You. Yes, CSF. How about the meninges? Remember the meninges? The meninges continues on. I like to ask that in the lab exam. I'll have your meninges on the table. Identify, you say meninges, and the question will be, this structure continues all the way down to the spinal cord. It's true. Students will mark false. I think they forget. They think maybe I'm just referring. It's the meninges. So here it's called cranial meninges. It has that shape. And then here you call it, it's just one meninges, okay? So it continues on down here. And you see how important the meninges are. The nerve that we are familiar with, you see the yellow structure, right? So this yellow is part of the meninges. In other words, as the nerve leaves your spinal cord, it becomes covered with a layer of the meninges, right? That's why the nerve that you will see, I'm going to ask you to look for a nerve in your cat. The easiest one to find is the femoral nerve or sciatic nerve. Very easy to find them. But every nerve that you see when you do your dissection, every nerve is dark colored and it's tough. That's not, the top part is not the nerve, it's the covering called perineurium. That's part of the meninges. That's the connective tissue that covers it. Okay? Okay, so you have your meninges, you have your bone, you have your CSF. Now I want to cut your spine. Oh, the meninges, by the way, before I forget. Don't forget that remember, it just, as it exits your spinal cord, meninges is collagen. So right here, it fuses with the bone. The collagen here becomes bone. So it's glued very, very permanently. It doesn't move. And then it goes all the way down. Of course, it follows the nerve. So it goes like that, right? All the way down. And it fuses here at the coccyx. Oops. I went way down. Actually will fuse here at the level of the coccyx and become one ligament. It's called iliococcygeal ligament. You don't need to remember that, okay? Students always ask, is that going to come out in the test? So I'm going to tell you now that it's just to show you that it fuses. To make sure that there's no possible movement for the spinal cords. It's very tight. So that if you do whatever any kind of break dancing, whatever, it doesn't move, causing possible trauma. Can you imagine if this one was swaying and it's not tight? It may cause a kinking or pinching of the nerve, and it will cause nerve damage. So this meninges, as it fuses with the bone to form your ligaments, is very, very important in keeping your spinal cord from moving. It stays put. Okay? Now I want to cut it. I'm going to cut it transverse. And you see, that's how it looks like. The central gray area and an outer cortex which is white. This is the opposite in your brain. Remember, in the brain, the outer part is gray and the inner part is white. Okay? Here it's opposite, gray, white. So of course, in terms of the parts of the neuron, the gray, one part of the neuron will comprise, yes, the cell body and dendrites must be here, right? And the axon must be here. I'm going to magnify this or do a diagram. It will really look like this. Here, this one, see? I'm just going to use this one because it's labeled. Okay? In your test, not this coming up test, the next test of the spinal cord. In the past, there was always, and I don't know about your coming up test, but there was always a picture like this where it's blank and you should be the one or you'll be asked to label. So expect in case it comes out, at least you're not caught by surprise, okay? There was a picture like this. You will be asked to label. So, you remember what we talked about as far as the nervous system is concerned? I said everything dorsal is sensory, everything ventral is motor. It's the same thing with your spinal cord. First of all, you need to know which part is dorsal and which part is ventral. I'm going to look for this fissure. You see this one very deep and this one shallow. So where the deep fissure is, that is the ventral part, ventral half. And one more thing very important to consider is this part right here. You see this bulge? The dorsal root ganglion. Wherever there's the bulge, that's the dorsal half. Okay? So dorsal is sensory, ventral is motor. You can tell now, right? This fissure or this one. You can use those two landmarks. This one is called dorsal root ganglion. So that's your clue. This is the dorsal half. So I want to look at these horns. It looks like a butterfly, and this is called horn. So this is the dorsal gray horn. This is the ventral gray horn. Okay? And out of the dorsal gray horn, you will find the nuclei of sensory function neurons, right? Dorsal is, so what is it? Dorsal must be going up to the brain, right? So this is really what happens, okay? Let's say I stepped on something sharp, like, okay, what felt that is the sensory. What part of the sensory neuron will feel the stimulus? Dendrites, very good. So look at the dendrite, then look at the cell body of that sensory neuron. It's right here. That's why there's a bulge, it's called a ganglion. So the ganglion contains the cell bodies of all sensory neurons. Do you remember the shape of this neuron? This is what you call a unipolar neuron. So all unipolar neurons are sensory in function. Only sensory neurons can be unipolar in shape. Okay? One more time, there's the stimulus. That was received by the dendrite part of my sensory neuron. And this bulge right here is the cell body of my sensory neuron. It's unipolar in shape. So all of the cell bodies of my sensory neurons, they all converge here. That's when there's that bulge, the dorsal root ganglion. So in your lecture test, I'll be pointing right here, you label, you say dorsal root ganglion. Anyway, be familiar with the different parts. It will be blank, you'll be the one to label. Even though, and that was at least in the past, I think 6 points, 6, 7, 8, that's a big jump. But some people leave it blank, or they label it incorrectly. So expect, in case it comes out, you know that. You're not going to be surprised. Okay? So how is it going to go? It's going to go up. It's going to synapse with the next neuron, and it's supposed to go up. So it's going to synapse with the cell body of the next neuron, dendrite cell body of the next neuron. And this one is supposed to go up, okay? You're supposed to report to the brain, right? So what part of the neuron will go up? It's the axon part. So again, I receive the stimulus. There's the cell bodies of my sensory neurons, synapse with the next neuron, and the next neuron will go up. So what part of the neuron synapse with this sensory neuron is the cell body dendrite, this circle right there, right? And then you see how it goes up. This is the axon part. You see how it goes up? It goes up through the white matter. So you remember what makes it white is the myelin of the axon. So the white matter is always where you find the axon. And the axons in the white matter are either going up or down. So here in the lateral to this half, the dorsal half, they're carrying ascending information. The ventral half, they will carry descending. So ascending is sensory. When they ascend, they carry specific information. So they comprise what you call tracks. Just like in the highway, you have the slowpoke, the middle lane, and then the fast lane, right? So this one, they occupy specific tracks. Every track carries a specific stimulus. So let's say you're a pain stimulus, it will go up here. Crude touch up here. So they're very specific. Don't think that everything they just all are going up right here. No, they're very specific. Thank goodness, right? If you get damage maybe on this side, you only have problems maybe with sensation of touch. But then pain, no problem, you can still feel. You understand, everybody? Okay? Okay. So then as it goes up, of course, your brain will finally figure out what's going on, and then you want to act on it. So it has, from the brain, it has to go down. So where is this descending track? So the white matter is made up of tracks or pathways, right? The tracks of the railroad tracks. So tracks or pathways, it's going down. Look at, it's going down the ventral, because ventral is motor. What part of the neuron? It's always the axon that occupies the white matter, right? The tracks. So it's going down, and look at how it's going to come out. Going to come out through your ventral gray horn, not the dorsal. Dorsal is always going up, it's always sensory. The ventral, to go out and stimulate, is always from your ventral gray horn. You see that? Now I want you to look at this picture. So look, when it finally comes out, this is one and the same nerve. You see this one nerve? It's one nerve. One nerve that has both sensory and motor components. Did you see that one? So this picture here of all of these spinal nerves, these are all spinal nerves, they come out of my spinal cord. We talked about the cranial nerves last week, remember? Olfactory, optic, oculomotor, those are cranial nerves. And if you remember, some cranial nerves are purely sensory, some of them are purely motor, some of them are mixed sensory and motor in function. Here, your spinal nerves, all of your spinal nerves are mixed in function. All of them contain both sensory and motor components. You understand? You don't have, let's say, sciatic nerve. There is no such thing as a sensory sciatic nerve and a motor sciatic. There's just one sciatic nerve. It has both sensory and motor components. It's when they connect with the spinal cord that they separate. You see, the sensory goes in the dorsal and the motor is in the ventral part. You understand? Okay? So look at, when they connect, so this is the nerve that we are familiar with, this one right here. As they connect, this part, when they separate into roots. This is the dorsal root, carrying sensory information only going up. This is the ventral root. You understand? This nerve has a name, the nerve that we are familiar with. It's called ramus. Ramus. So the generic term for any nerve of the that comes out of the spinal cord is ramus. Just like all of us are called humans, but then you have a name, you have a name, you have a name, but we're all humans. Just like this one right here in our picture over here, these are all rami. You understand? All of these are rami. And they all have sensory components and motor components. You got that, everybody? Okay? Okay. So far you understand you understand ramus? You have a question on ramus? Do you have a question on root? Dorsal root, ventral root? Do you have a question on that? Okay, now we're going to add a few terms. Okay? So here, first I'm going to use this one. So this ramus, when it leaves, as it leaves, okay, the ramus branches. The ramus that innervates the back is called dorsal ramus. So any nerve, if it innervates your back, if it innervates your latissimus, it's called dorsal ramus. You understand, everybody? Any nerve that innervates the ventral part of the trunk, the upper and lower limbs, what do you call that? It's called ventral ramus. So what's an example of ventral ramus? My axillary nerve, radial, that's a ventral ramus. Sciatic, ventral ramus. You understand? How about the nerve here that innervates my latissimus? Dorsal ramus. Okay? My receptors here that detects itchiness in the back is a dorsal ramus. So it has both sensory and motor. Same thing here, right? The one that detects the touch here, ventral ramus. The one that makes my muscles move, ventral ramus still. You understand? How about here? Ventral ramus also. So we got this dorsal ramus, ventral ramus. Then, of course, you have nerves that will go inside, that innervate my organs inside. Okay? You call them rami communicantes. I think it's easier to write autonomic nerves because they are autonomic. Autonomic ramus. And that was her body cavity. To the internal organs. Or maybe, how about visceral? It's easy to remember visceral. You can just write visceral ramus. So you know that that goes in there. Every ramus has both sensory and motor. Okay? And then you see that there is a meningeal branch. So there's there's the root, the ventral root, and there's dorsal. See, ventral root, dorsal root. As they leave, see, there's the meningeal branch that goes back to innervate your meninges. There's the ventral ramus, there's the dorsal ramus. So it's just one and the same, but as they come out, depending on where they're going, they have different. So there's your autonomic or your visceral. So here it's just one and the same. But when they go inside to connect with the spinal cord, that's where they separate. Okay, you understand? And each and every one of these nerves are mixed. So if, let's say, this one is detecting touch or pain, so that's going to go dorsal, to go up. If this one is going to tell your, let's say, your heart to contract, it's going to come out here of the ventral root. So this is root, this is ramus. You understand the difference between root and ramus.
Where's the root exactly?
The root is the one that's attached to the spinal cord. So I'm going to go to this picture over here. Like this one. This is the root. This is the ramus. Okay? Root ramus. I think I have another slide over here. See, there's your this is sensory, so there's your dorsal root. See how all the sensory, this is just the sensory part, and the next slide is exactly the same. Look at the next slide, exactly the same. But now it's highlighting the ventral root, the scary motor. Here, it's just highlighting the dorsal root. But they're all the same roots. It's the same ramus. It's just when it's carrying motor, it's going to come out of the ventral root. When it's carrying sensory, it's going to enter the dorsal root. But when it comes out, it's one and the same ramus. Okay? You understand that now? Everybody? You got that? Because we're going to add one more term. So the distribution, this rami, the typical rami, the dorsal ramus, the ventral ramus, the rami communicantis, and the meningeal branch. That typical distribution is present in the thoracic segments of the spinal cord only. When you get to the cervical, to T1, T2, then T12, all the way down to the sacral segments of the spinal cord, the ventral ramus of each and every one of those segments, they fuse to form what you call a plexus. Plexus. So the plexus is nothing but a, look at, I'm going to go to this picture over here. Maybe this one is better. Look at this one. So this is the ventral ramus, see? See 5, 6, 7, 8, you see that one? And if you look at them, this is the ventral ramus. That's the because it's going to the upper limb, it's a ventral ramus. But you see 1, 2, 3. When you trace them, you see how they fuse? They fuse. So this one nerve is a fusion of several ventral ramus. So this is from a plexus of nerves. And the plexuses are only present in the ventral ramus, not in the ventral ramus. Because you have upper and lower limbs. And they say that when we were being formed in utero, there were, like the biceps muscle that we're familiar with, it used to be that there's several muscles. But as we were being formed, a lot of them fused. So the individual nerves that used to innervate those individual muscles now had to fuse also. So that's why you have that. Do you understand, everybody? Yes? No? Okay? You got that? So what do I want you to know about these plexuses? I want you to know their names. I want you to know, maybe there will be a matching type. You just need to know the major nerves that come out of the different plexuses. For the cervical plexus, the major nerve that I always use is this one, the phrenic nerve, which innervates the diaphragm. For Bio 242, you're going to find that phrenic nerve that really goes to the diaphragm. So where did that come from? That's a cervical plexus nerve. So if there's an injury in the cervical level of the spinal cord, you predict difficulty of breathing because that's from the cervical plexus. So in the test, I will have a lot of clinical scenario. So I'll say, patient complains of difficulty breathing. What do you think? What plexus do you think? So you'll be given choices: A, cervical; B, brachial; C, sacral plexus. So you tell me. So you're gonna write cervical plexus. Okay? For the brachial plexus, There's your, so brachial, biceps brachii, right? So the brachial plexus innervates your upper arm. So all these nerves here, in other words, all the nerves that we're familiar with, I'm sure you know radial nerve, ulnar nerve, it's not just from one segment of the spinal cord, right? It's from several, ventral, ramus, that fused. So what are the common nerves from the brachial plexus? I know you know this one. Ulnar. It won't be hard to predict what plexus. If I ask you, there's a problem here. You're just gonna write brachial plexus because this you know that if you don't know your anatomy, you're going to be in trouble. But I'm sure you know here brachial. So everything in the upper limb involves injury to your brachial plexus. So you see from, I know you know this median, ulnar, radial, axillary, maybe the only one. I'm not going to ask you to name the nerve. I will give them to you already. But look at the symptoms. You see some patients with that. It's called a waiter's tip. See some patients who have damage like that. You know their injury is involving your brachial plexus. Okay, C5, 6, 7. I'm not going to ask you this C5, 6, 7. I'm going to ask you what plexus. So you see this one. This is the common carpal tunnel syndrome, right? Problems with the computer, carpal tunnel syndrome, and does it make sense that there will be winning of the scapula because the brachial plexus innervates your deltoid muscles too. So if there is injury, you'll see this one. That's why when you do neurological exam, you want to ask the patient to take off the, uh, the top, or maybe you have them wear lab gowns. You look at the back, you see for symmetry. You look for symmetry. Okay. Now, so that's, if you see this, you're going to match it to brachial plexus. The next plexus will be your lumbar plexus. See? At you L1, 2, 3, 4, 5. See, they fuse to form the one ramus that we're familiar with. And the most famous lumbar plexus nerve is your femoral nerve, and well, two of them, femoral and obturator nerve. So with the lumbar plexus, remember, lumbar for, what's that red fluid there? Is that yours? Juice?
No,
From you?
no,
Oh,
I don't have a juice.
okay.
I have water.
The cat juice? No, it's just red. Okay, must be juice. So L for labor. So this is the one, the obturator. You know where the obturator foramen is, right? This is the big hole in your pelvis, right? And so that's where the obturator nerve comes out of. There's our scalp over a scalp. The skeleton. So there's the skeleton, right? There's your pelvis, and there's the obturator foramen. So the obturator nerve comes out here. And a lot of times when we give birth to big babies, that obturator nerve pinches the baby. The baby will pinch the obturator nerve and it gets damaged. A common symptom will be they will lose sensation in the medial aspect of the thigh. So again, lumbar plexus, thigh problems. Cervical, breathing. Brachial, upper arm. Lumbar, thigh problems. And then the last plexus is your sacral plexus. The largest nerve is called the sciatic nerve. So with this one, your problem will be below the thigh, below the knee, your leg, your foot. So have you seen some people? It's called foot drop. They're dragging their legs. They're dragging their foot drop. So they're dragging like that. So so what's the problem there? Sacral plexus. Will you remember? Cervical, you know that when you find problems with your neck, breathing. Brachial, over here, right? Just read the clinical scenario. If it has something to do with this one, brachial plexus, think brachial. If it has something to do with thigh, think lumbar, right? If it has something to do with leg and foot, think sacral. Those are the only, yes.
But don't when you have psychiatric nerve pain, you have like shooting pain through your thigh also?
Yes, but it's all the way down to your
Yeah,
leg.
okay.
So if it's involving the leg, you know it's sacral plexus. That's very good. Okay? Okay, do you have any questions so far on the plexuses? So you understand spine, you understand ramus, you understand root. By the way, another favorite question of mine is, look at this one. Okay, look at this part right here. You know that we have a few effector organs. The effector organs are your skeletal muscle, so that's your somatic nervous system. Remember, somatic is conscious, right? What are the other effector organs? You have your cardiac muscle, your smooth muscle, your glands, and adipose tissue. So these are other effector organs too. Look at the motor neurons, where they come out of. Look at the red. This is going to your skeletal muscle. The red neurons, they come out of the ventral gray horn. Look at the green. This is the one that will innervate your autonomic organs, your cardiac muscle smooth. You see that they come out not from the directly from the ventral, but there's a bulging part of the ventral gray horn. This is called the lateral gray horn. Okay? See, lateral gray horn. Be able to label them for your next test, not this coming up test, okay? So the motor neurons that come out of the lateral gray horn innervate only your internal organs, your viscera. If you're going to innervate skeletal muscle, they will come out of the ventral gray horn. You understand? That's why if you're given a cut or a section of the spinal cord, you can tell. You can tell just by looking at the spinal cord, you can guess where it was taken. If there is a bulge like that, that bulge, the lateral gray horn, is only present in the thoracic segment of the spinal cord. You know that cervical may be smaller. The thoracic will have that bulge, and then as it goes down, the lumbar bigger. Okay. But in the test, maybe you'll be given a blank like this, and I'll say, "Can you guess where this was taken from?" Or, "Can you guess where this could not have been taken from?" If you see that lateral bulge, which one will only have that? Thoracic segment. Because your internal organs are right here. That's how I try to remember. They're all right here, right? And nearer the thoracic. Okay? So that is your lateral gray horn. Okay. So when you do neurological exam, you notice that all offices will always have this cheat sheet. You see, they're one very advantageous property or characteristic of the nervous system all the way is called specificity. They're very specific in the sensation they carry, and plus in their area of coverage, which is, I think, a blessing. So that's why they do specific testing on every area, and they always have this map in their offices to have an idea of where the damage will be. If you have a problem here, it's not the thoracic that will be your pathology, it will be in the lumbar. See? Does it make sense? You need to memorize this because it's going to come out in your test. No, I'm just kidding. It's too much. But you see, there's a map like this. See, it tells you. It's amazing. To me, it's a blessing. We don't have to. It's very, very specific. Very specific. The other part of the spinal cord that we're going to study for today is what we call reflexes. reflexes. Okay? So a reflex, you see, it's an immediate involuntary response. So it's an automatic response and it's meant to maintain homeostasis right away. It's a lifesaver. Let's say you were holding something hot, you dropped it first before you said, oh, that was hot. Or you stepped on something sharp, you pulled your foot right away before you said, ouch. You see? This is like this one right here. We'll go back to this picture up here. Which helps explain reflexes. Just like this one, okay? Look at this part over here. You detected, let's say you detected a painful stimulus, you were holding something hot. You see, it bypassed the brain. You synapse immediately with the motor part so that you drop the hot whatever. But you always send to the brain. See? As you're sending to the brain, you're already taking care of the problem. Does it make sense? That's what a reflex does. It's an automatic response. And we classify reflexes different ways. A reflex can be innate or inborn, meaning you're born with it. Okay? Like with babies, I'm sure for some of us who have given birth, I'm sure you know that your babies were tested neurologically because they wanted to know to test is the baby term, post-term, or premature. So there's a lot of reflexes like the Moro reflex. That's a sign if the baby does that, then they don't shake the baby, but they they lift the baby very gently, then they let go, then the baby should go like that. If it goes like that, that means the baby is turned. That's a Moro reflex. So even this one, what's that? Blinking is a what do you call that? An inborn, an innate reflex. What is an example of you learn like you're stepping on the brakes, right? That's a learned reflex. Some reflexes, if it involves your spinal cord, then you say it's a spinal reflex. So all of this pulling, it's the spinal cord. Here, like the blinking, that's a cranial reflex. Okay, you see the difference? Okay. Some reflexes, it depends on your effector organ. So if it involves skeletal muscle, like I withdraw, that's a skeletal reflex, a somatic reflex. How about, let's say, your defecation reflex, urination reflex, uh, your blood pressure, right? You stretch your aorta, it contracts. Those are visceral reflexes. You see the difference? Somatic, visceral. Now, depending on how many synapses, you will say it's monosynaptic or polysynaptic. So with this one, how many neurons do you see? 1, 2, 3, right? This is the sensory. There's an interneuron and then there's a motor neuron. So this is polysynaptic, right? There's more than one synapse. Some reflexes, like your tendon reflex, that's a monosynaptic reflex. So the sensory will synapse with the motor right away, like this. So which one will be quicker to respond, monosynaptic or polysynaptic? Yes, polysynaptic, okay? Another way to classify your reflexes. Now, in the past, again, there was a picture like this in the lecture test. So, be familiar with this one. This one, for this specific reflex, you see, it didn't involve just one segment of the spinal cord. I see 3. So you say this is an intersegmental reflex. Okay? So the reflex responds to the site of the stimulus. Let's say I stepped on something sharp on my right foot, right? I pull my right foot. My right foot did an ipsilateral reflex. Meaning same side of the stimulus. And look at, my left then has to, at that point, my left has to automatically hold my weight. So make sure that I'm able to lift my leg, my right foot from the offending stimulus. So this, the left foot is doing a contralateral reflex. You see the difference?
No.
What's ipsi?
That's the
Same side.
same side.
Okay, so what did you do on the same side? You
Your
pulled, right? So what did your other side do?
Stay still.
So that's a reflex. So what do you call that?
Like contrast.
Yes, contralateral. Look at this picture. So what you will usually expect in the test is, let's say, this picture shows monosynaptic, polysynaptic reflex, both or none. What are you going to write? Poly. I see polysynaptic, right? This picture shows intersegmental reflex, true or false? Intersegmental reflex, true or false? True. There's several segments. This picture shows somatic reflex, true or false? Somatic is skeletal muscle. Yes. This picture shows visceral reflex. Visceral? False. Visceral is your internal organs. This picture shows a sensory neuron. Yes, you have to detect the stimulus. There's the sensory. This picture shows motor neuron.
Yes.
This picture shows interneuron. Yes, I see the interneuron, right? That one? Okay. Now, another term that I want you to know is this one, reciprocal inhibition. Our book uses the word reciprocal innervation. Other books use this one. I think this is easier to remember. So you see, let's say I was holding something hot, or there's something very sharp that I pull it away, right? So what helped me do this is my biceps. The one that will do the reciprocal or the opposite is the triceps. So at that point, I want to inhibit this one, right? I want to inhibit my triceps. That's what you call reciprocal inhibition. To accomplish your reflex, you want to inhibit the reciprocal action of the antagonistic muscles. You got that?
So inhibited from going back down.
Inhibited from going back down, yes. Reciprocal inhibition. You just inhibit the reciprocal action. Because look at, if I did that, I may touch the hot object again. So I want to inhibit that reciprocal action. Reciprocal inhibition. You understand what the reciprocal means, right? Inhibit. You inhibit the reciprocal, the opposite action. Okay? So how about in this picture? Do you see an ipsilateral reflex? Yes, very good. There it is, right? You see contralateral reflex? Yes, right there, standing. Okay? So in the test, that's how it was tested in the past. I don't know about now, but I'll say there is ipsilateral reflex, true or false. You see intersegmental, you see monosynaptic, you see polysynaptic. So just that's how you practice figuring out if you see if there's those different kinds of reflexes. Do you have any questions so far? No questions? Okay. So yes.
Wait, so how long are your average sensory or motor neurons? Are they all like just one connected to your interneurons?
Oh, how long the
Yeah.
leg coming out? If they come out of this one, Once they come out here, it's just one.
It's just one all
It's
the
just
way?
one all the way.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yes, it is. That's the longest cell in the body. Nerves are the longest cells in the body. Okay? So if you don't have no questions, we're going to stop the lecture here. Take out the sheet of paper, write your